Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So let's get on to solving the multiple choice questions for prelims 2020 and we are on to day 24th. So let's get started with question number 1. So it is, consider the following statements regarding energy intensity. Alright, statement number 1 is, it's a measure of the energy inefficiency of an economy. Alright. Second is, the energy intensity of India's GDP has gradually declined in the recent past. Is it so? So pause a bit, read these statements and try to come up with the right answer, and options are either way obvious: 1 only, 2 only, both, or none. So let's see the answer now. So basically, energy intensity is indeed a measure of the energy inefficiency of an economy. What do we mean by energy intensity? It means how intensive the production process is. For a given increase in GDP, for a given increase in the production of a good, how much units of energy are to be consumed? This is what we mean by energy intensity. And we really are not supposed to even think about this, that more is the energy intensity in terms of more are the number of units of energy consumed to increase the output, more inefficient the entire production process would be, right? So that's how, yes, that energy intensity is a measure of the inefficiency and not the efficiency of an economy. And further, do not confuse energy intensity with the energy efficiency. These two are different things. Energy efficiency is as in how much units of energy are produced by a given appliance. So let's see, in terms of air conditioner, a 5-star AC would be more energy efficient because it would be consuming less unit of energy. But here, in case of energy intensity, we are talking about the production process. So given technology can be very energy intensive if it's using higher number of units of energy in order to produce 1 unit of output. So that's it. So let's not deviate too much now. I'm sure this thing is clear. So statement number 1 is definitely correct, and statement number 2 is also correct, that yes, indeed in the recent past India's GDP has actually come down. So this is something that we have to memorize, and yes, so it's a good thing that India's energy intensity of GDP has come down. So just memorize it, and answer here becomes C, that is yes, both of these statements are correct. So let's get on to next question now, and it's really important and simple. This is with regard to International Platform on Sustainable Finance. So consider the following statement with respect to IPSF, that is International Platform on Sustainable Finance. Number 1, it is an initiative of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that is UNFCCC. That's it. Second is, it is aimed at mobilizing private capital towards environmentally sustainable investment. So channelize करना है किसको? गवर्नमेंट इन्वेस्टमेंट को नहीं, प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट को towards the environmentally sustainable investments. And the last is, India is a member of the platform. So pause a bit and try to come up with the right answer, and it's really important, something to experiment your guessing skills over. So this is a sort of question that even if you do not know about this, still you should be able to answer based on your guessing skills. So options are either way obvious: second only, 1 and 3 only, 2 and 3 only, and 1 and 2 only. So in none of the options we have all of these statements as the correct option. No. So it has to be either 2, 1 and 3, 2 and 3, or 1 and 2. So try to come up with the right answer here as well. So let's see the answer now. And so herein, statement number 1 is not correct because it has nothing to do with the United Nations Framework Convention Climate Change. No. This platform, which is onto the sustainable finance, is by the European Commission. It's a part of the European Commission's ongoing work to support a global transition towards a low carbon and more resource efficient and sustainable economy. बाकी तो नाम से ही clear है that it is towards the sustainable financing and it's an international platform, but not by this United Nations body, but by the European Commission. And yes, statement number 2 is indeed correct, that its aim is to channelize, to mobilize the private finances towards the environmentally sustainable investments. That's it. So it's a private capital, that's a keyword. And statement number 3 is also correct, that yes, India is indeed a member of the platform, very, very important. And what all are the other members? Not important, but just for the sake of covering, here we have the European Union nations plus Argentina, Canada, Chile, China, India, Kenya and Morocco. So these names are not important, but yes, India is its member, plus it's by the European Commission, and it's towards channelizing the private capital towards environmentally sustainable investment options. So this is important. So answer here becomes that 2 and 3 are correct, so C is our right answer. So let's get on to the next question now. So we are on to the last question. It's really, really simple. So which of the following statements are correct with reference to employment elasticity? So employment elasticity से हमें क्या समझ में आता है? Number 1, it measures the change in employment associated with a unit change in the economic growth. Alright. Second is, a falling employment elasticity can be considered as an indicator of the industrial automation. Very interesting and important. So which of the statements are correct? 1 only, 2 only, both, or none? So pause a bit and try to come up with the right answer. It's a really, really simple question. Even if you do not know otherwise what the employment elasticity is, still you should be able to answer it because it's really simple. So let's see the answer now. So basically elasticity is flexibility, and flexibility of what? Right now we're talking about the employment elasticity. So how much flexibility is there in the employment? Employment means if we are increasing the output, then we are needing to hire more workers. So that's what we mean by employment elasticity. That for a unit change in economic growth, that is for increasing the production or for increasing the GDP, how much more people we are be needing to hire, that is how much would there be change in employment. So yes, employment elasticity measures the change in employment associated with a unit change in economic growth. That's it. अगर इसका वैल्यू 0 है तो मतलब कुछ फ़र्क नहीं आ रहा एम्प्लॉयमेंट को, चाहे ग्रोथ इकॉनमी का हो भी रहा. अगर इसका वैल्यू 1 है इकोनॉमिक एम्प्लॉयमेंट इलास्टिसिटी का, इट्स नॉट नीडेड बट स्टिल आई जस्ट एंडेड अप सेइंग सो लेट मी जस्ट कवर इट. एम्प्लॉयमेंट इलास्टिसिटी इफ इट्स वैल्यू इज 1, दैट सिंपली मीन्स इफ द इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ इज 5%, then increase in job would also be 5%. And if its value is negative, that means that there is एम्प्लॉयमेंट इन इलास्टिसिटी. अगर इकॉनमी में प्रोडक्शन बढ़ रहा है लेकिन आपका जॉब्स कम हो रही हैं, दिस इज़ व्हाट वी मीन बाय एम्प्लॉयमेंट इन इलास्टिसिटी. एंड दिस लास्ट पार्ट वाज नॉट इम्पॉर्टेंट, वी जस्ट हैव टू मेमोराइज व्हाट इज एम्प्लॉयमेंट इलास्टिसिटी, दैट्स इट. इतना नहीं पूछेंगे कि 0, 1 और नेगेटिव क्या क्या मतलब है. सो दैट्स इट. नाउ स्टेटमेंट नंबर 2 इज दैट अ फॉलिंग एम्प्लॉयमेंट इलास्टिसिटी can be considered as an indicator of industrial automation. So yes, this is absolutely correct, because automation implies that even though production is going up, but that is by the automated means, by the robots and all, and not by the human beings. So not giving jobs to the people. That's how, due to industrial automation, employment elasticity would be going down. That's it. So yes, there are just 2 points, so both of these statements are indeed correct, and that's it. If you haven't gotten over it, then do let me know in the comment section. We'll go through this question once again, but either way we are done. So there was the third question, and now we are on to the last one, which is the fourth. And again, this too is important because this was right there in the news for not so good reasons. But let's see the question now. So consider the following statements with reference to extra budgetary resources. All right. Number 1, extra budgetary resources are those financial liabilities that are raised by public sector undertakings. All right. on behalf of the central government. So now we're all right. Last is, or the second statement is, higher is the extra budgetary resources, higher is the fiscal deficit of the government. Something to be thought over. So do read it on your own and try to come up with the right answer here as well. So options are either way obvious, 1 only, 2 only, both, or none. So let's see the answer now. Now herein, extra budgetary resources means the resources those are not accounted for in the budget. वो हमारे पास resources आएंगे तो सही, but हमने उनका budget में जिक्र नहीं किया है. So that's it. These are the financial liabilities, fair enough, that are raised by public sector undertakings, alright, but on behalf of the central government. So let's say LIC is availing loan from the market. So it is definitely a public sector undertaking, or not just LIC, you can take of any other example as well. So basically any public sector undertaking that is undertaking debt, taking out money from the markets, that's how it's a financial liability on the behalf of the central government. Central government directly नहीं government security issue करके अपना पैसा ले रही, but through the indirect route, that is public sector undertaking. And statement number 2 is incorrect, because here extra budgetary resources has nothing to do with the fiscal deficit. And why exactly has it nothing to do with the fiscal deficit? Because that's how accounting exercise has been taken by the government of India. So we know there is an act called Financial FRBM Act. So full form I am not being able to recall. It's FRBM. So maybe Financial Regulatory Budgetary Management Act. So based on that act, we have a 3% of the GDP as the fiscal deficit limit of the government of India. Now that's how government cannot go for higher and higher debt liability from the open market. तो गवर्नमेंट अगर फिजिकल डेफिसिट को नहीं ब्रीच कर सकती 3% ऑफ जीडीपी से और उसको पैसा चाहिए, तो वो अपने पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग को बोलेगी कि आप मार्केट से पैसा उठाओ, जो कि हम ही पे करेंगे, बट बिकॉज आप उठा रहे हो तो इसीलिए हमारे फिजिकल डेफिसिट लिमिट में उसको काउंट नहीं किया जाएगा. सो येस, इट हैज़ नथिंग टू डू विद द फिजिकल डेफिसिट, एंड दैट मेक्स स्टेटमेंट नंबर 2 इज करेक्ट. Now for the examination purpose, we just have to keep a tab on 3 points. Number 1, extra budgetary resources are those financial liabilities that are raised by public sector undertakings for which entire amount to be repaid by the central government budget. That's it. Even the principal as well as the interest. Now second point is important, that they are not taken into account while calculating the fiscal deficit. Now this is how it is. The entire analysis is there but not needed for our prelims MCQs, and we just have to memorize this. Further, they definitely are part of government debt indeed, but they are not calculated into fiscal deficit. That's it. So I'm sure this is clear, and do not unnecessarily think about why and how. That's not needed. So we are done. And still, if you haven't gotten over this, then do let me know in the comment section. We'll try to go through this question once again. So either way, we are done, and thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.